Welcome back to Behind the Print podcast, where we feature industry leaders and uncover the creative minds and their businesses within the world of professional printing. Our mission is to provide you with inspiring, actionable resources that elevate your business projects and accelerate your journey to excellence in profit and print. Today's episode is Chasing the Night Sky, and I'm here with the owner of Call of the Mountains Photography, an astrophotographer capturing the beauty of the night sky, Kuria Jorissen.
Yay!
So how's your day going today?
Oh, it's going pretty good. We have nice weather here in Washington today. It's been a little windy, so it's nice to have it at least just be our normal gray.
No, for sure. But can you take us back to your first memory of stargazing? What was it like? How did it spark your love for the night sky?
Yes, a little history on me is that I was born in Washington and I was raised in Colorado. And my first memory of the night sky would be with my parents and my brother. And we were just out in the Colorado wilderness staring up at the sky. And my brother and I were trying to figure out constellations. So we were really excited to get the Big Dipper. I mean, as adults, we're like, that's an easy one. But, when you're an elementary schooler, you're like, I got one constellation. So it was pretty exciting. And from there, I know that I've always loved the wilderness and I've always loved stargazing. I like wishing upon stars. We'd always do the first star you see, you'd make a wish and hope your wish comes true. Nowadays, you end up wishing on a lot more planes than you did back then, but
That is very true. A lot more planes than before and a lot less stars because of all the light pollution, I'd say too.
Yep. So that's one of the great things about living in America is that we actually have a lot of really dark sky places and a lot of international dark sky sites. So compared to some other countries, we're actually lucky in the fact that we've got places where we can go out into the wilderness and still see dark skies. And we're doing more and more with the International Dark Sky Association to make sure that we're acknowledging what we need to do to still be able to see the night sky and use better lights that are more directed and not just like flooding light everywhere in all directions. And you're like, be smarter, get things to light up just where you need it to be and not everywhere else.
That's super cool.
Yeah, the international dark sky locations.
Yeah, what makes that?
Yeah, so there's an association called IDA, and they're the ones who kind of give the go ahead on if it is or isn't a dark sky location. And most of it is just being light pollution conscious. And so they're the ones who give you the ideas on what kind of light fixtures you need and whatnot to make it happen. I know that Flagstaff is one of the places that is a dark sky city, and a lot of Arizona, actually. And then they're the ones who are saying that certain places are dark sky sites, and that's generally based off of their light pollution level, which is also called a Borkel level. Here in Washington, I live in a rural area, so I'm like at a Borkel 3, which is nice. And versus like Seattle, you can't really hardly ever see the stars. So the further out in the rural neighborhoods and in the forest and stuff, you get much, much darker. And it's cool because a lot of the apps nowadays for night sky planning actually show that. So there's one called Planet Pro, and you can go to the light pollution section of that, and it'll actually show you in a colored map of the United States, like in other countries, like where your dark skies are. So that way you know when you're planning if you're gonna actually see the stars, or if you're like, oh yeah, in the middle of like a really big city, why would I ever think I would see even the Big Dipper?
Wow, that is super, super interesting, super cool. So tell me, who is your audience as an astrophotographer and artist?
Yeah, so my audience is pretty much anybody who enjoys nature and art, because I actually go around the states to art shows and I sell my artwork, which is mostly pictures of the Milky Way and fun astronomical things like that. So I find that a lot of people grew up in rural areas are like, oh man, the Milky Way, I haven't seen that in years. So they're a big part of my audience. And then also people who have never seen it, like the people who grew up in cities and have never truly been out to the dark areas. They think that it's all AI generated. That's kind of the problem nowadays, is fighting AI generated. But trust me, nature is a lot better at it than AI will ever be.
For sure, bringing them a huge step closer to nature in that sense.
Yeah, and we actually have a lot of history tied into the stars. Depending on what your nationality is and stuff, there's pretty much every culture has a connection to the stars, from the Hawaiian cultures where they actually did navigating by the stars to tales and how to protect yourself. Like some people think that the aurora was an evil entity that was like taking the children at night, and other people thought that it was good luck to have your child born during the aurora and that it would bring them great wealth. So it's kind of interesting. The Big Dipper, as we've been talking about, is actually like seen as a bear in almost every culture, which I find funny. So that constellation must have really looked like a bear at one point. Now it just looks like a dipper.
That's so funny. I wonder how all the different cultures made their own stories for each constellation. That's so interesting.
Yeah, and obviously they all have their own different names. Like we mostly learn the Greek mythology behind it, but yeah, I've taken it upon myself to study a bunch of different other cultures. So I've got a book on the Japanese constellations, the Navajo constellations. That's the one that started it with me. And just pretty much if it's a book on constellations from a native tribe or group, I'm in it. I want to read it. I want to know about it. The furthest one I have is probably the Aborigines from Australia, and that one was super cool to get. And yeah, I've got quite the library at home.
That's awesome. Do you have one you would recommend as your favorite?
The book that I would recommend is Sharing the Skies, Navajo Astronomy, and it's by Nancy and David. They're both PhD majors and they're Navajo. So it is so full of rich history and it shares a bunch of different tales for the different times of year. They're a culture that believes that you can only share the star stories when it's the first snowfall in the first snowfall in the Navajo land to the first lightning storm. So it's one of those interesting things. And if you choose to be a person who also enjoys reading the native astronomy, I would just suggest to try to keep it with what they want to do. Like, don't be sharing their stories in the summertime, and not every culture is the same. So just because that's how the Navajo believe it does not mean that's how the Japanese believe it and that kind of thing. But I've had a lot of fun reading.
Yeah, I bet you've learned a ton too.
Hmm.
So, your project, Chasing the Night Sky, became a defining part of your career. Can you tell us the story of how it started and what it means to you?
Yeah, so how my Chasing the Night Sky project actually started was as my thesis in college. So I went to the Art Institute of Seattle and got my bachelor's degree in photography. And when it came down to the thesis, which is always the hardest part of getting the degree, I went through a couple of different projects and landed on the fact that I was always trying to do astrophotography. Like between quarters, I'd be doing astrophotography. It was just something that I wanted to learn how to do. I actually took an independent study class and just did astrophotography with one of my professors, and he didn't know how to do it either. So it was just kind of that thing where we both picked up a book and we're like, we're going to learn this because this is a whole quarter of just spending time trying to learn this. And I got a star tracker for Christmas, which is a fun little device that actually moves my camera with the speed of the stars. So that way I can get nice, solid Milky Way shots. And from there, I was like, I'm trying to do this anyway. I might as well go for it. And that kind of started the project. And then just by being out at night all the time, at first it was my mom who would travel with me because I very much believe in the buddy system. I'm not going to go out into the middle of the wilderness alone, especially with how many animals I've encountered now. I always like to have a partner with me. And there's just something magical about being out under the starlight and all you have surrounding you is the sound of nature. And it's just, we call it stargazing. It's just really regenerative and it feels nice. And I always know when I really need to see the Milky Way again because I just get itching to not be here anymore. And it's funny because I went to Miami for the first time ever and I was like, this area is so bright because like all the buildings are white and everything. I mean, I'm from Washington State. We don't know what the sun is. So going there, I was like, I need the night sky. I'm like, I just need all of this to tone it down a second.
Take those lights and shh.
Right? Just a little down. But yeah, through my thesis, I discovered more about light pollution and what light pollution is really doing to the night sky and the animals around it, because there are a lot of nocturnal animals that use the natural light at night to navigate, and thus our city lights and our huge lights that have no purpose are actually intervening with their ability to do their navigation, and it really affects sea turtles in the sense that they're born on the shore and they're supposed to go to the brightest thing. And we've noticed, especially in bigger cities, that they're starting to go towards the city and get into traffic instead of going towards the ocean where they're supposed to go. So it's one of those that knowing more about all of our effects on nature, it kind of helps us understand why we need to stop it. And light pollution, unlike stopping fossil fuels, which is a lot harder and there's a lot more to go into it, stopping light pollution is as easy as turn off your lights at night. Like, yay, that's all it needs. It's one of the easiest pollutions to stop, especially in suburban areas and other areas, is we just need to be more conscious about where we're spreading our light and how to pull it back a little bit. Because if you've ever driven past a car dealership at night, oh my gosh, they're so bright. And you're like, I don't know how that's helping you. These things need to be on dimmer switches, man. I understand you need a little bit of light for security, but you don't need that much light all the time. So it's just one of those things.
No, for real. And all the windows are super glass and they go all the way up to the ceiling and it's just like illuminating.
Oh,
Come
yeah.
on, guys. Come on.
The LED billboards are ridiculous because, like, in the daytime, it doesn't really seem that different. But at night, you're like, and suddenly I can't see the road anymore.
No
Right?
kidding. No kidding. What do you think makes Call of the Mountains photography unique compared to other photographers in your field?
Yeah, so I would say what definitely makes me unique is that I'm a child born from Y, right? So I know a lot more about the industry than people would give me credit for, because I've actually started writing a book on astrophotography. So I know so much of the ins and outs of what creates aurora, when is the actual time to chase aurora, and we like to say there's a Milky Way season, right? So between March and October is generally like Milky Way season, but it's not that the Milky Way ever goes away, because we're like in the Milky Way. Like our planet is inside the Milky Way. So there's every star you see is part of it, but the band that we call the Milky Way rises and sets. And during winter, you don't see the juicy part. You don't see the core of the Milky Way because it's below the horizon for us, at least here in the northern hemisphere. And so it's one of those that I have put a lot of research into knowing why things are a certain way and how to get like the actual night sky to look like it looked that night versus just enhancing it with Photoshop and adding colors. So there are ways to make it look natural, and then there are the ways that other people treat it where it's like that is 100% fake looking. And I like to keep it in the realm of yes, that is what it looked like. I mean, cameras can see a lot more than we can, so they'll pull out more reds and stuff than our eyes can even see at night. But that doesn't mean that you have to go and like really push that envelope to being like there's no way that's something that's real. And I like to say that knowing all about all the different aspects of what I do sets me apart, because I am very deeply invested in that and deeply invested in learning more about the native astronomy and light pollution. So it's being an activist where you can with the platform that you have.
That's awesome and super, super interesting. Do you have any tips for anybody who's looking to get into that type of photography? How you mentioned the lighting and pulling out the different colors and not over editing.
Yeah, so my biggest tip would be to start off with books and classes. That's what I started off with. It's a very book learned route. Luckily, there's a lot more people who are doing astrophotography, so it's a lot easier to learn than back when I was trying, which was like 2011. And I say if you can afford it, getting a star tracker is a game changer. They're fun little devices and they really make it easier to do astrophotography. You can do it on any kind of camera. And it's funny because everybody always asks me, oh, what crazy equipment do you have? And I'm like, besides this $400 star tracker, it's not really a lot of crazy equipment. It's a tripod like anybody else has a tripod. And then I've got my camera and my lenses are the same camera and lenses that you use for like portrait photography or any kind of photography, really. And I find just getting out there and experimenting, it's just like everything else. You can't break it just by trying to use it, right? You can't break cameras if you drop them, but that's like a whole different story. But yeah, there are also plenty of great workshops by a lot of teachers. I'm also a workshop instructor, so I have what's called a CUA so that I can teach in the national parks, and it changes what national park you get a CUA from every year. I currently have workshops in Mount Rainier, and I've done workshops in Rocky Mountain National Park and all sorts of fun stuff like that. So whether you go out with an instructor first or if you just go out on your own, I also believe in the buddy system because, like I said, I've encountered a lot of wildlife out there. And even if it's just the family of deer that for some reason are staring at you while you're working at night, it just feels a little more comfortable to have somebody with you just to make sure that you're a little more safe. Because, yeah, I've encountered cougars and yeah, I've seen more cougars out than most people who have done hiking for like 50 years. Um, Never fun to encounter a cougar. Always nice to have a buddy with you so that you're like power in numbers and also just, somebody else to be like, yes, that is what you're seeing and we need to run now. um, both times we encountered cougars, they were at least distracted by something else. So the one time it was stalking these other people who were cooking hot dogs on the rim of Crater Lake. And so when we came up to the ledge to see the crater, it saw us and we spooked it. So it ran away. And I was like, best option. So happy. I'm like, you did great, cougar. Run away. Then we had to tell the people who were cooking hot dogs, I'm like, I saved your life and you don't even know me. And then you have the other cougar incident, which it was going after some food and we distracted it during lunch or dinner time. And we were luckily very close to our car. So we just ran into our car and got out of there because black bears are easy. You can scare them, easy peasy. Cougars, not so much. So, yeah, I always say buddy system, make sure you got everything you need with you. Like, I have bear horns, so they're really just air horns, but we call it a bear horn because we use it for bears because it's easy to scare them away that way. And many other creatures, you blow a really loud noise and they'll be like, what the heck is that? And then get out of there. So that's much easier than bear spray. I feel like bear spray is more of the you're actively in danger versus like you tried your air horn, it didn't want to go away, then you bear spray. But yeah, I have a lot of fun going out at night, and I think everybody should experience it. It's as easy as if you're going camping, you can just set your camera on a tripod and set it to a really long exposure and just try to do star trails for starters. I mean, it's not hard to get into and it's funny because it's addictive. Once you start like really seeing the night sky, it's like why people go camping all the time, it's why people go backpacking. It's just to be out there in nature, and I like to capture that little part and bring it back to people who don't experience it because not everybody has the ability to go out there, and seeing the night sky is amazing. It's something I truly love and I love to share it with everybody else who doesn't get to see it.
What an exciting story. Oh my goodness. Cougars, bears. Wow. That is just a lot for the night sky. Oh, that's
Right.
awesome though. Because the photographs that you take are totally worth it.
Thank you so much.
So tell me a little bit more about the exhibits you've been featured in across the country. There has been quite a few you've been in, and I just want to know, how do you decide which ones to submit to?
Yeah, so the which ones to submit to is always the hardest part. There are two major things that I use to find what exhibits are happening. So there's one place called Cafe. It's a call to entry, and so they're the ones who are like, "Hey, so and so is doing a show, and they're asking for artists, so then you can submit your artwork there." And then the other one is Zapplication, and they also are a thing where they'll tell you what festivals and fairs are happening that you can have a booth at. And generally, I try to look at where I am, which is Pacific Northwest. So I'll try to stick to the West. I keep dreaming of going to further east, but so far, my van, my time, and all of that, I stick to the West. Like I say, I get really distracted once I get hit to Colorado, Utah. It's a little harder to get past that. But through that, I will see what the call is or what the event is and see how my work might fit that. I've done a few really unique shows here in Washington. Like when I was graduating at the Art Institute, I actually got the opportunity to show my body of work at the Pacific Science Center. So they gave me 50 feet of wall, which is a lot of space. And I got to hang a bunch of art pieces, like right off of my thesis. And that was like my graduating, bam, this is me entering the art world. And I loved it. And then I've been showing all sorts of places. I've had a couple of prestigious places that I've shown. I've had my work shown in Tupac, Arizona, and I actually placed second place in their art show a couple years back. And yeah, so I've had pieces win awards. I've had a podcast by a French guy, and that was a pretty fun podcast to be part of, talking about dark skies and all that stuff. And yeah, I have a hard time picking which shows to go into because there are so many good ones. And then ultimately, we just figure out what the shows are, apply to those ones, and sometimes it's based off of where we really want to go. Like before I did a lot of shows in Arizona, I just knew that I wanted to go to Arizona because it's so different from here in Washington. So I applied to what is known as their two bigger shows, which is Tubac, Arizona's, no, not Tubac, sorry, Tempe, Arizona, and their winter festival, and then also Tempe and Tucson. So the Tucson festival, and me and a friend up here in Washington actually went down together. That way it was a little cheaper for us to go across so many states, and because we don't fly there, we drive there. So it was the long truck driving, two fully packed minivans full of artwork. We rented an Airbnb down there, and yeah, it was a blast. And then we've instantly fell in love with Arizona. I understand why people snowbird there all the time, especially when our state gets a little too gray all the time. It's just beautiful to see some sunshine. We joked that was the first time we ever actually got a tan.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And then I know that I grew up in Colorado, so I like going to Colorado. And when I got the CUA to teach a class in the Rocky Mountains, I was like, oh, I should try to butt this up with a couple of shows so that I could be there longer. We actually spent a whole month in Colorado because I had so many shows lined up and then a workshop. And yeah, I definitely like Colorado. I miss it a lot. I'm one of the crazy people who say that I miss the snow, even though I know how detrimental the snow can be. But it's a lot more fun in Colorado snow than it is in Washington snow. Our snow is really wet, and we teeter-totter on the freezing levels. So really, we just get a lot of black ice. Like we get a lot of sneaky ice, which is no fun for anyone, versus the powdery soft stuff in Colorado where you can actually like make an igloo out of it, like me and my brother did when we were kids. Here, you sometimes can't even make a snowball out of it. You make more of an ice ball, and then your friends don't love you anymore because those are not fun to be hit by.
Oh man, that's great. Yeah, we also have powdery snow up here, so I totally feel you. Up in Montana, it's so fluffy. You can make anything. It's great.
Right? I mean, they're just each state has its own beauty and its own weather. That's like when I went to the East Coast for the first time, I was like, oh, this is why umbrellas exist, because here in Washington, it's misty and umbrellas do not actually help you at all. But in the East Coast, where it like downpours for an hour and then it's done, you're like, oh, so this is real rain. What we have is
Right.
just misting.
Just misting.
Yeah, there's no escape. That's why
Oh,
we all wear North Face jackets and stuff like that, because if you don't have a water repellent on it, you'll just get soaked to the bone so easily when you're out hiking.
yep, gotta stay dry. So you mentioned the Pacific Science Center, which is awesome. But would you say that is a major milestone that has shaped your journey as an artist and business owner?
Yeah, I actually would, because it's funny because when I was showing at the Pacific Science Center, it was also when Interstellar came out. So it was when it just hit theaters and it was in their IMAX. And then my body of work was right outside the IMAX. So you got to see all of my beautiful Milky Way pictures before you saw that beautiful movie. And it just really tied together. And it was one of those where I was like, I think I could really do this. And a funny other milestone was actually COVID, because it pushed me to pursue my art as a full-time career instead of just like doing it like half and half, because I was doing that as well as I was doing wedding photography. But it was like the big push because, like, during COVID there weren't a lot of weddings happening. So we were pushed to do art full time, and then I got into a couple of bigger art shows like the Edmonds Arts Festival and the Anacortes Arts Festival here in Washington. And once you hit the big ones and you get a taste of that, you're like, I can do this. And then it's just fun and exciting. So from there, it was showing my work. I already knew how to frame because of my mother, and I know a lot about art because of my mom and dad. And then my degree behind me, it was just really supportive. And I think it all really did start with the Pacific Science Center and my graduating thesis and all of that.
That's awesome. How cool.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey. A lot of fun. I'm working on putting together a book for the art side of it, because it's still really shocking to think, but it's been 10 years since I graduated. So it's been 10 years of doing astrophotography, and you can definitely see the progression in it. And I've just had a lot of fun. I got a lot of stories, which is like one of the fun, exciting things about when I put my artwork online, whether it's in my social media or on my shop online. I like to add the little stories so that way people can experience it a little bit, because the pretty picture is one thing, but the adventure that goes behind the picture is, it just adds a special little layer to it.
I saw that on your social media. I love that.
Awesome, thank you.
So, on the flip side, what challenges are holding your business back right now?
The weather. But besides the weather, I would say other things that are holding me back is publishing is hard. So I've got probably 95% of my how to do astrophotography book written, and really just the last little bit of trying to figure out if I want to self-publish or go through a publisher. And it's looking a little more self-published than publisher, and just like what that even really means. And then marketing in general. I like doing the artist bit, which is the fun bit. I'm getting better at letting people see the work behind when you're setting up and you're planning and all of that. As you'll see on my social media and stuff on my blog, I like to show that my family likes to go camping, and when we're camping, we'll play board games and stuff while we're waiting for the sun to go down. But the actual advertising part, it's just not as fun. I didn't go to marketing school by any sense of the means, but we just try to be organically out there and see what happens, because I prefer face to face interaction, or face to Zoom call, whatever. But it's a lot easier than when you're just sending emails into the void.
No, for
Being like,
sure.
right? It's like Black Friday sales are pretty good, but past that, I'm also not a person who likes to think about running sales every week. So it's just one of those things. I'd rather just tell you about the fun adventures, get you hooked on my artwork, and if you like a piece and you want it in your house, that'd be even better.
For sure. I can't wait till you produce that. That's going to be really awesome.
Yeah, I have high hopes for it.
Me too, me too. So you photographed the stars across the country. Is there one location or shoot that stands out the most as magical or challenging?
Yeah, so it's definitely Cannon Beach, Oregon. I love Cannon Beach. It's a special little place. And when I went to Cannon Beach, it was the height of the Perseids meteor shower. And I was able to catch the Milky Way right behind Haystack Rock, which is a main feature there. And we just happened to be so lucky that there was bioluminescence on the water. So the water was sparkling and electric blue, and that was a time that it was me, my husband, and my mom. And my husband's a bit silly. He's a bit of a break dancer, so he was breakdancing on the sand just to see the sparkles like fly everywhere, because it was really a magical night, because it ended up being one of my best selling pieces. I swear I've made half my money off of that one piece alone, which is also just a testament to going out there and trying things, because we only stopped at Cannon Beach because I knew the timing was right for the Perseids to be peaking and also for bioluminescence to possibly happen. And we were already going down to Crater Lake for something completely different. And I was like, well, we have to be in Crater Lake tomorrow, but we could stop off with this one night in Cannon Beach. And we didn't buy the most expensive hotel or anything. It was like $100 a night or something like that. And we stopped in, we stayed up really late, and then we had to leave the next morning. And, that $100 little investment to do a little pit stop there ended up being like half my career. And I have no regrets. That was like the funnest trip that I've ever had, and the only time I've seen bioluminescence. So I'm still after that bioluminescence high, because once you see that once, you just get really addicted to it. It is so cool.
Yes,
And
I completely agree.
I think there are like caves in New Zealand or whatever that have bioluminescent worms on the ceiling. I want to see that too.
Yes, yes. And how they're using the bioluminescent algae, I believe, to use it in animal DNA.
Yeah, I've heard about
Super
that.
cool.
I mean,
Side
it's
note.
just, yeah, just crazy science stuff. I am into the crazy science stuff.
Me too, me too. So is there a spot that you're just dreaming of going?
Ah, the spots I dream of going. Let's see. I know that I would really love to photograph in the Scotland, Ireland area with their monoliths, and those just look so pretty. The circles that are created. I actually have a book on monoliths and how they relate to the astro. I have a book on monoliths and how it relates to astronomy and the history back then, and I just want to go there and see those beautiful structures and capture the Milky Way with them. Even though I know that those areas and Washington are both extremely cloudy and the weather is against us, but I would still like to do it. And then I also hear that Australia has beautiful night skies, unlike anything I've seen here, because I hear that it's just it's really dark there when you get out into the outback. It is dark. The only scary thing is that everything in Australia wants to kill you. So we think we've got spiders here. Don't even research spiders over there. um,
Scary.
right? But yeah, I often joke that I want to be everywhere I've already been and everywhere I haven't been equally as much.
That's a
Because,
good little idea.
right, I made a deck of cards once. They're like tarot card size, of every national park in the United States and every state park in Washington. And sometimes when I want to go somewhere but I don't know where to go, I just shuffle the deck and then draw a card, and I'm like, this is where we're going to conquer now. So I let life decide sometimes. And sometimes you just got to shuffle the deck and pick a place, and other times it's whatever calls to you at the time.
Yeah, just see what life gives you.
Mm-hmm. Fun adventure no matter what. I mean, it's always about the journey, not the destination.
Very true, very true. So if you had a day to spend completely free, however you like, away from work, what would you be doing?
I'd be stargazing probably. If it's a day completely away from work, recently my husband and I did a trip we went to Miami, like I said, and it was for a cruise called 70,000 Tons of Metal. It is a 5-day metal cruise where they show 60 bands over the 5 days, which is really only 4 days that the bands are playing. The bands start at 10 a.m. and they're playing until 6 a.m. It is jam packed. Actually, most of my art pieces are actually named after metal songs and metal and industrial. And so it was just really cool because it's like a nonstop backstage pass. So you get to see all of these bands that you absolutely love, and they can go from no-name bands and countries that you didn't even think that there were bands in, all the way to, like, I know Anthrax was on the ship once, and Sepultura just did their Farewell at Sea this year. So it's a wide spectrum, and then you get to find bands that you didn't know about and you love, and it's a big camaraderie in the metal community because I think they said there were 81 different countries represented there, so it is vast and it is pretty fun. The only thing, in my opinion, is I don't want it to be in Miami because we were in Miami going to Jamaica, and the entire time I was like, this should be an Alaskan cruise. I demand it be colder. But besides that, I like hard music, so if I'm not doing astrophotography, I'm generally wanting to be in a concert.
That's awesome. I love that. And I love cruising. So that just sounds like a great time.
Yeah, I've actually never been on a cruise before until that, and as a first cruise, I gotta say, it was very awesome, and I was very addicted to the pound cake.
Yeah, that endless buffet will get you.
Every time. I mean, it is, it's not bad buffet food, right? Like, I mean,
Oh,
there are
it's
some,
actually really good.
yeah, there are some really good things they have there and fun little things that you wouldn't know about. And not to mention, on that particular cruise, you sit down for breakfast and you could be eating next to, like, the band of, you know, who was it? Unleash the Archers was one of the bands that we kept running into, which we love. They're from Canada, and they've come down to Washington a lot to play, so we know them quite well. So it was kind of awesome to be like, dude, you're eating right next to me. And it's just like that kind of fun experience where no matter what on the ship, you're running into a bunch of bands or people who are in bands but are just there for fun that weekend. So yeah, it was pretty awesome.
That's super, super exciting and cool. So, how can our listeners connect with you, learn more, collaborate on a project, or eventually get your book?
Yeah, so I've got my website, art.callofthemountains.photography.com. And then I'm also found on pretty much every social media with the handle at Call of the Mountains Art. Yeah, I try to make it easy until the cool kids find a nice place to land, as one of my favorite bands said once, because we have Facebook, Instagram, a place called Kara. That's a new social media. And then also Blue Sky, Flashes, and I'm on Reddit. I'm everywhere. I try
Uh,
to be hip.
Try to be hip. That's awesome. Well, you guys are to check her out, Call of the Mountains Art on all socials, and don't forget to check out that website too. But that is another episode of Behind the Print podcast. Thanks to our listeners as we have explored the artistry and innovation of the printing world. Remember, having a strong vision, building the right strategy, and using tools like print to amplify your message will make your brand stand out from the crowd. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to stop by printingcenterusa.com and get yourself a free sample pack to share with your fellow business enthusiasts. Until next time, remember, there's always more to discover behind the print.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. We're so glad to have you.